Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
So here's Johnson, he's gonna roll to his right. He does have some space in front of him. Instead, he's gonna throw the pass down the field, and it is caught by his wide receiver. That's Cavil, and Cavil gets the ball near the midfield stripe.
First big play of the game, and Johnson made a great decision there. He could have continued to run, but kept his eyes up and looking downfield. Makes the pass there out on the perimeter on the edge, and picks up a big first down.
If you are very familiar with the HBCU media space, Cavil is the nephew of Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the dean of HBCU media.
The good doctor.
You and I have had many conversations with the doctor as on this play. Connor Wisham goes right up the gut, picks up maybe about 3 yards on the play. Second down coming up for Prairie View A&M.
You get more invites on the show than I do. I gotta step my game.
This is Dr. Mills inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome to the crew and the team. We got Big Mike, Charles Bishop, and AD Drew, all in the lab to discuss what took place in the weekend's games. As we know, a lot has already been determined, but before I do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Tyler Carr and Mo Carter in regards to the shout out for a better framework of it. One, Kobe Cavil, my nephew, wide receiver for Prairie View A&M University. The Panthers there, they did go down 9-6, but he certainly had a big play in that game, and it gave them an opportunity to shout me out. So wanted to make sure I returned the favor and acknowledged them and said thank you. Quick story before I get into the introduction and ask you all how you're all doing this Sunday morning. Is I had a chance to record it as you saw there, and it just instantly came to mind after shout out to Joe Clay as we do our little framework and discuss games as we're watching throughout the week. A couple of texts. One is all alphas from HBCUs, and the other one is a group of Panthers from Prairie View, obviously. And with that, Joe let me know that they said it on there, so I went back and watched it and died laughing and was humbled. And so I decided to record as you saw there. And then later that evening, we were relaxing. We were doing Pizza Friday on a Saturday, as we do every couple of weeks with Deuce, because I was traveling from out of town. Shout out to Philadelphia and Black Men in Education, Black Male Educators Conference up there in Philadelphia. Got a chance to have my Philly cheese sandwich at the Taste. It was full of us in there, and so it was lively. More important, the Philly cheese, Charles, Mike. Man, it was nice.
Man, you know I have an office there, so the question is, how did you get your Philly cheesesteak made? Was it real with Swiss cheese? Did you put the red onions on it?
Or did you
put the red peppers? Yeah, or did you do cheese whiz? Tell me you didn't do cheese whiz. Tell me you didn't do cheese whiz.
No cheese whiz. I did straight traditional.
All right,
straight
exactly.
Traditional. Now I did cheat a little bit. I had fries, which I'm not supposed to have, but I worked out really well last week and jumped some pounds so I could spoil myself. So I had fries with jerk chicken, Philly cheese on it, if you would, and that was absolutely delicious. And so did have a little something to wash it down appropriately to make sure that it went down correctly. And so that was good. Just as we do, shout out as PV Phillip was down there with the student principal of school. So Prairie View is everywhere. We get it done. So I had a chance to partake with the dinner festivities with him. Shout out to all the presenters there. Great information in terms of folks doing stuff. But what I was getting to on Saturday was we was chilling, watching some of the late games with Deuce and my wife Faith. I got a chance to show him the video. Oh boy, did he crack up! He thought that was so funny, and that was meant the world to me. He laughed and he loved it. Wife just giggled as well. So that was a pretty cool moment as we get into the holidays. But with that being said, welcome to episode 587 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, a show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We'll have some other guests, as you saw with AD Drew, maybe popping in to show some love. We're filming from our home studios as we get ready on this Sunday to close out the football season. And some of us are already in basketball mode. Others are still continuing to football. And some of them are just trying to figure out where we are. In the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, Charles, how you doing this morning?
I am doing excellent this Sunday morning, Dr. Cavil, and good morning to all those aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, wives from Alcorn State University, and to all those listening to Sunday school this morning. It's probably a little tense because in Jackson we have a good even divide of Jackson State Tigers and Alcorn State Braves, and when we meet up on Sunday mornings, you can always tell who won and lost. So good morning to all those Brave fans out there. It was a big win for Jackson State yesterday. Jackson State, you guys have been so active on social media. Y'all have provided me enough tickles and whatnot over the night. So.
Well, shout out to you. Let me bring back this winning cigar mode. Here's a cigar.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Mike, we're going to use I know you got your purple on, but we're going to use the Texas Southern side so I can give you a cigar as well. If not, I have to put this down. So how you doing? Hey, Mike. While Charles got double wins, you split.
Yeah, I split.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good, man. Shout out to the did a little work this weekend. Shout out to the Black Chemical Engineering Society and did some work with Prairie View faculty. Want to give a shout out to those folks. They complimented us on the show, a couple of folks. So told them I'd give them a shout out if they checked it out. Other than that, beautiful weather in Houston. I had some very definitive games that I had to catch up on yesterday evening and this morning. But other than that, beautiful and ready to go, man.
Good stuff. Good stuff. With that being said, Sherry's not dead. We got Championship Sunday set today in volleyball. Congratulations to the number 1 seed, Florida A&M Rattlers, and the number 2 seed, Jackson State Tigers, to make the SWAC volleyball tournament championship game for a rematch of last year's championship game. The Rattlers defeated the number 4 Bethune-Cookman Wildcats in straight sets. The rivalry match was during the same time as the rivalry game, which I'll tell you an update on that score as the Rattlers got it done. Very close match, unlike volleyball. And the Tigers defeated the number 3 Prairie View A&M Panthers in 4 sets. The championship match will be aired on ESPNU at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time today. Also in the MEAC, congratulations to the number 1 seed Howard Bison and the number 3 seed Delaware State Hornets for making it to the MEAC volleyball tournament championship game. The Bison defeated number 5 Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks in 4 sets, and the Hornets defeated number 2 and a mild upset Coppin State Eagles in 3 straight sets. The championship matchup for the MEAC will also be aired on ESPNU, but it'll be aired at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that's pretty good. The 2024 FCS Football Championship Selection Show with information, brackets, dates were aired this morning at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN. we'll be interested in that as HBCU fans, just a general in terms of FCS, but more importantly, we have two teams at least that on the proverbial bubble. I think they should be in. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's Tennessee State. Congratulations to the Tennessee State. I would say fans, but based on what I saw at the game, I don't know if that's the correct terminology to say. We might get into that discussion because that was frustrating to me for a team that is pushing for a share of the championship and got it done. There weren't many folks there to watch. Four-way tie in the OVC Big South, and Tennessee State comes out with the championship. They did not have the automatic bid. It still goes to Southeast Missouri, who they defeated. But they have a chance at an at-large bid. And Tennessee State, in North Carolina Central as well, out of the MEAC, thrashed Delaware State, and they put their bid in for an at-large bid since South Carolina State, as we talked about last week, clinched their ticket in their win last week, and they continue their winning ways to the Celebration Bowl in December in Atlanta. So that's your quick updates in terms of the landscape.
One more, Doc, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Mike.
Got a big shout out. I had a chance to meet this person about 2 weeks ago. Congratulations to Prairie View's Kylie Owens. SWAC Volleyball Player of the Year. Led the team in, and my favorite stat of all, kills, baby, with 372 this season, as well as 49 service aces, baby. I love that. Kills and aces. She marked a milestone, posting over 1,000 career kills during her impressive career. Congratulations to Kylie Owens, Prairie View's own. Had a chance. Lovely young lady.
I told you she was not dead. Certainly well done there, Mike. Let's get some updates on what took place because we had two big wins and some first in regards to the Miles Golden Bears winning their first round of NCAA Division II playoffs. They were at home. Virginia Union Panthers also win, so we got a double dip. SIAC and CIAA, the Virginia Union Panthers defeated Wingate Bulldogs in the playoff round. So Miles Golden Bears will face off against Valdosta that had the bye this week. And guess what? Valdosta State is undefeated, but they're led by HBCU head coach out of Texas Southern University. So that will make up some interesting things. We will have both coaches for interviews on Tuesday. We'll even see if we can reach out to the Valdosta State head coach and see if I get him maybe on Thursday as we get to the weekend and start preparing for Thanksgiving. We'll make sure we're going to have a show. We'll kind of discuss with the team and see who's available after they fatten themselves up with some turkey. Doing the show may be a good workout as they have to walk around and get ready. We'll see what that looks like. But with that being said, quick rundown on the top seven. Only two teams played this weekend, so we can run through this pretty quickly. Those receiving votes: Shaw Bears, Albany State Golden Rams, Fort Valley State Wildcats. All finished the season at 6-4, respectively. Bears were at 4-3 in conference play. Golden Rams at 6-2, along with the Wildcats also at 6-2, did not play. Top seven of these teams, 7, 6, 5, and 4, as well as 3, which is Livingston Blue Bears, the Winston-Salem State Rams, Clark Atlanta Panthers, Virginia State Trojans, and Johnson C. Smith did not play this weekend. Starting with Livingston, they finished also with 6-4, as some of those teams receiving votes. A conference play, they were at 4-3. Winston-Salem State finished at 7-3, 5-2. Clark Atlanta Panthers finished at 7-3-1 and 6-2. Virginia State at 7-4, 6-1. Johnson C. Smith, the Golden Bulls, finished at 8-2, 5-2. Virginia Union Panthers get to 9 wins as they defeat Wingate Bulldogs. As I said, the score was 34-31 in overtime. Wingate had to kick a field goal as the Panthers forced them and hold them out of the end zone in overtime. But the Panthers were able to get in the end zone to win the game 34-31 in that overtime in the NCAA Division II playoffs. Number one, the Miles Golden Bears defeated the Carson Newman Eagles as they won their first playoff game after being there a couple of times in the previous iteration. 14-13 was the score of that game as they hold off the Carson Newman Eagles to get it done, playing really tough. And they get to the magical 10-win season total as they're 10-2, 8-0 in the conference play, as we talked about, while the Panthers were 6-1 in conference play. Big weekend by those teams. Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of what the Virginia Union Panthers out of the CIAA and the Miles Golden Bears out of SIAC were able to accomplish with playoff wins this past?
Well, tremendous, tremendous accomplishment for both teams. I think both teams slightly did it a little bit different way. I didn't have a chance to see both games, but if you look at some of the stats, you looked at Virginia Union; they were able to gut it out to the end. A steady balance, a balance of heavy dose of running the ball, of course. But with Miles do it a little differently with solid defense and a balanced offense. So congratulations as they move further into the football conference, and I think they have a strong foothold. I expect them to continue. However, playing Valdosta, that's gonna be a tough one. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Charles?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, historic for both Virginia Union and Miles. When you take a look at Virginia Union, this was the offense that we've been waiting to see in the playoffs, and it exploded yesterday against Wingate. But tremendous outing for both teams. You have to be SIAC proud. You have to be CIAA proud. And then to just open it up even bigger. I mean, when we went into this season, I think, Dr. Cavil, there was so much intrigue from conference to conference to conference. And the way things have just kind of played out, this has been a very interesting football season to sit back and watch. Kudos to Tennessee State as well. But I mean, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun because there was a lot of intrigue going into this season.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
intrigue in the weekend. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm just going to say, I think Miles is going to go where we thought we would take as far as their defense can take them. Their defense is incredibly strong. So I think they'll go as far as their defense. No offense to their offense, but if their offense sputters, that the root, the bread and butter right there is in their solid defense.
Yeah.
Good point. Somebody said Sam Shade is on the clock. All of, like they talking about from the minors to the big leagues. Mid-major to the major, I guess is the way we refer to it. And there's no shade on the mid-major programs because they certainly put in work, as we see, winning in the playoffs where it counts as well. With that being said, let's get to the major division before we take our first break. We had some beatdowns in the major division, particularly in the MEAC, where they didn't leave any father in the SWAC. We had some closer competitions, independent as well. Shout out first to Hampton, as Hampton does what Hampton does. They had a big lead over Albany, let Albany come back and get the loss. I only talk about that because they had a chance to finish the season 6-6 for the Independents and chance to kind of make a major statement with that loss. They do not. Getting into those receiving votes, besides Hampton, who was not part of those, but I thought I'd shout that out. I watched part of that game and was shook. Florida A&M Rattlers, 6-5, 4-3, defeated the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats in the rivalry game. Close game that came back and forth. The Rattlers won 41-38 in a great competition there. Morgan State Bears finished the season at 6-6, 3-2 in conference play. They defeated the Howard Bison, pulled away from them. They won 35-21. Prairie A&M Panthers closed out this season and couldn't get to 500 as they fall to 5-7, 3-5 in a defensive tug of war as they lose to number 7 Alabama State Hornets. The fifth-string quarterback finds a way to get it done. The wide receiver converted. Big ups to him as that defense found a way to hold on. In this game, they were able to get it done as they hold Prairie View to just 2 field goals. They win 9-6 is the final there. Again, number 7 Alabama State takes down number 8 Prairie View A&M Panthers 9-6. They are at 6-5, 5-3. Remember, they have the Thanksgiving Day Turkey Day Classic where they play the Division II rival Tuskegee Golden Tigers. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And number 6, Alcorn State Brave. They lost to number 1 Jackson State Tigers as the number 1 ranked Tigers last weekend. We'll see what they look as we release the polls in the next segment. They defeat and trounce Alcorn State as Braves lost 48-10. They fall to 6-6, 5-3 as they finish their season. Southern Jaguars did not play. They have a week before they face Grambling in the mother of them all, as some would say, granddaddy as them all, as others would say, the Bayou Classic. So the Jaguars remain 7-4 and 6-1. At number 4, Tennessee State Tigers. We told you they had the big win and allowed them to share a part of the big OVC and Big South championship. They win 28-21. Really dominated a lot of the ways of that game, but they kind of had to hold on. But it was nice to see when things fought and couldn't spread out the score. The last 2 drives, essentially, that closed things out, was a defensive stop by the Tennessee State Tigers that would not let SEMO get past the 50. So they punted the ball out, hoping that Tennessee State Tigers offense couldn't do anything, but they essentially ran it down them throats and ran out the clock until they surrendered the ball, essentially with no time left, under a minute left, and held on. The Tigers get it done. They get to 9-3, 6-2 in the OVC ESC joint venture. At number 3, North Carolina Central Eagles defeated Delaware State Hornets 52-10. That's with some of the players not being able to play in that matchup, including the coach. They improved to 8-3, 4-1, as both teams will be on the clock at 11:30, listening to see if they get a bid to the FCS playoffs. Number 2, South Carolina State Bulldogs know what they get. They get to celebrate as they officially get their ticket punched to the Celebration Bowl for Atlanta, and they dominate Norfolk State, coming from behind to win that game at home 53-21. They show up and get it done as they are at 9 wins, 5-0. So they'll go to the Celebration Bowl with 9-2 records, top 25 team, I would imagine, in most FCS polls. We'll see what that looks like as that comes out. Finals today before or this week as they announce the playoffs again. At number 1, Jackson State Tigers defeated number 6, their rivals, Alcorn State Braves, and put a beat down on them, and it never was close, 48-10. 10 wins on the season, 10-2. PC Taylor, shout out to him, and went undefeated in the 8 conference games that counted. Obviously, that non-conference conference win loss against Grambling. They did have the win, and Southern would ultimately have them hosting the championship game. Even if we don't count that, if you go through the tiebreakers, they still would have hosted based on how we broke it down. But that is official now. Jackson State will host, and they will face Southern. We'll see if Southern can get to that 8 win and set up an intriguing matchup one way or the other in that matchup. With that being said, let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 for the major division teams that played this past weekend?
Dominant closeouts from both Jackson State and South Carolina State, sort of making a statement, if you will, as we go into postseason play. So very dominant performance both yesterday from those 2 teams. I'm willing to listen to Tennessee State fans make the argument for, where they should be in the rankings coming up. So that's going to be interesting segment when we get to that. So I'm looking forward to that. And, let me send a shout out to Texas Southern.
So, Charles, you telling on yourself you voted them number 2?
I'm just saying, I'm waiting on that segment.
Yeah, Charles is hedging his bets. He hedging his bets.
I'm waiting on that segment. I'm curious to see what the polls are gonna have there. So
speaking in tongues.
And then let me say this: shout out to Texas Southern. That was huge, getting to 5 wins. They finished just under the Mendoza line at 5-6, but program very much made some strides this past season. Played the whole season with the number 2 quarterback. So getting the 5 wins, that was big for them to close out in good fashion yesterday. But good day of football yesterday. Really enjoyed it.
I bet it was. Mike,
I'm sure it was.
He gets shouted both of them out too.
Yeah, he gonna shout. I'm telling you, he hedging
South Carolina State. Boy, I tell you.
Yeah, he hedging his bets. So I can't give anything much different than what CB did. I was amazed to see how definitive the wins were both in the MEAC and the SWAC. I mean, outside of the Prairie View game, these were some really conclusive victories. So you don't know if teams really wanted to just make sure that they finished strong in a season, or maybe a few teams mailed it in, or maybe they had problems. I can't put my hands on it, but they were clearly definitive wins. Shouts out to Texas Southern, as CB mentioned, one half of my education background, and then Prairie View. I'm telling you, the waters are getting real hot on what should happen in the coaching ranks. I'll just say that in the Prairie View chatterbox, it's getting real ugly. So, and then shout out to Tennessee State. I mean, my goodness, I'd be more than listen. I'd support their arguments for moving up in the bowl. We'll see where they fall, but I would support their arguments for moving up in the bowl.
So Mike is still on himself.
Don't look at me like that, CB. Don't look at me like that.
I guess we'll find out where Brian and Drew voted as they will come in the next season as a tease. With that being said, we'll go to the break and come back on the other side and see what happens in the top 7 by Brian and AD of the Sports Rap. They're back together in terms of what they'll do tonight. With that being said, let's get to this first break and come back on the other side and see where everybody voted their tongue and how it wrapped up in terms of week number 13 for the major division poll rankings. We'll be right back after this first break.
HBCU football fans, a champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th. MEAC champions, SWAC champions, the Cricket Celebration Bowl, crowning an HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bargain. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
ESPN Band of the Year returns to Atlanta on December 13th. 4 marching bands will qualify for the big stage, where 2 national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
Dr. Bill's inside the HBC Sports Lab. Shout out to Brian as their team got it done. The Rattlers won.
Yay!
The Florida Classic there, and I see the volleyball invitational as AD is showing some love as well. Man, the Rattlers in the building. Shout out on both sides as we give congratulations. Excited about that. Before we get into the major division poll rankings, I did want to say as I watched the Florida between FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, as you had the dream team on it, Tiffany Green, Jay Walker, they were showing the Band of the Year rankings, and you had North Carolina A&T is number 1. You had Jackson State at number 2. In the top 5 was Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman. And so they were saying that matchup was one of the ones they selected to count. So essentially, they were going to cancel one another out. And how far could the winner of that matchup jump up? Could they bump out A&T or North Carolina Central in terms of jumping up there into the mix? Obviously, you had what people back in the day when it was in Jackson, the Soul Bowl, with Jackson State, as I just said, number 2, facing up against Alcorn in terms of that band matchup. Fascinating to see how that went in terms of being able to the Sonic Boom. Could they hold their place in terms of that victory? If anything counts for what, shout out to Alan Williams, as he was there live at the game. He said he had to get it in, and he was thoroughly impressed in terms of what he saw in that matchup. He thought Sonic Boom made a statement in terms of their sound. So we'll see. With that being said, Drew, I'm going to let you jump back in here, but let me get and run down this major division, and then we'll get your thoughts there in terms of the magic of what took place yesterday. In terms of the major division, this is week 13. We're getting down the stretch. Not a lot of changes when you get into this part of the season, but it becomes fascinating because you see top of the polls, you got FCS playoffs on the line, you got bids on the line, you got a national championship on the line, while the Celebration Bowl certainly crowns the winner of that bowl game, and oftentimes they are the national champions in their mind in terms of what the Celebration Bowl is. They do that, but we still have the human voting polls for the media, and we'll see what that looks like, and oftentimes this will go down in that. So in terms of that matchup, dropping out this week, we did have a team drop out after they got beat down by Jackson State Tigers. Alcorn State Braves fall out of the top 7, 6-6 on the season, 5-3 as they finish. They drop out. Let's get into those receiving votes. In terms of receiving votes, they still are in shouting distance, if you would. At the top of that is Alabama A&M Bulldogs with their win over Valley, going on the road. It was close and back and forth in that matchup until Valley's quarterbacks got hurt, and Alabama A&M Bulldogs were able to make some key plays in the second half and pull away as they win, improved to 6-5, 3-4 in the conference, 143 points. Morgan State Bears close out their season as they get it done. They're actually at 6-6 and finish at 3-2 with 128 points. Alcorn State Braves, they finished the season at 6-6, as we said, 5-3 in the conference race with 126 points. Let's get into the top 7. At number 7, Alabama State, with their win, they stay in the top 7 and remain at 7. Actually, they improved to 6-5, 5-3 with 165 points. Getting us to number 6, Florida A&M after a week absence, they jumped back into the polls at 6-5, 4-3. On 169 points, were not ranked last weekend, as we said, but they jumped back in, which means they have a matchup, which will be 6 versus 8 next weekend to close out things in terms of the season. At number 5, Southern Jaguars, they remain in the 5 spot. They did not play, but so they record holds at 7-4 and 6-1 with 179 points. Getting into the top 4, where it may get a little interesting. At number 4, there was a lot of chatter. Should Tennessee State be higher? Well, they remain in the 4th spot, even though they win 9-3, 6-2, 180 points. They remain number 4 as they get into the poll rankings. We said earlier, congratulations as they get a share of the OVC BSC Conference Championship and are looking for an at-large bid to the playoff. At number 3, North Carolina Central at 8-3, 4-1. The Eagles get it done against Delaware State, but they remain at number 3, 188 points. They no longer have the first place vote as they lost that last week, and they still do not have that. So getting us to number 2, this is where it gets interesting. South Carolina State Bulldogs, maybe not 9-2, 5-0, 5 first place votes. They add their first place vote from last week. I think all these folks are included in those 5, 224 points. And they remain at number 2, but they could not take away the place vote needed to flip them to the number one spot, which remains the Jackson State Tigers. Or maybe Charles did the difference in the vote.
I think Charles was bribing some people.
No, 6 first place votes, as I said, 225 points. They remain number one as they hold on to the number one spot. It is close in these rankings, at least between that. A little more to be played. In a couple of weeks, they will face off against Southern. And if Jackson State gets it done, they will punch their ticket to the Celebration Bowl back in a rematch, if you would, against South Carolina State. Will Southern have the upset of the year in a lot of ways if they can defeat Jackson State, their rival, after losing earlier this season on the road in Jackson? Boy, I tell you, Southern says, hey, not so fast. They got a Bayou Clash against their rival, and they want to get that done first. But if they're able to punch the ticket in the championship game, it'll be their first appearance in the Celebration Bowl against South Carolina State Bulldogs, which will go back to a football game back in the day when they played in Atlanta in a classic over that way. With that being said, enough of that talk. This is Week 13, top 7, with those receiving votes as well. Which direction do I want to go as those shaking their heads? Let me go to you, Drew, since you shook your head a little harder than
Did he switch his vote again?
Yeah, exactly. So let me go to you, AD.
All right.
Vote switcher.
Can I back up to the band of the year question first before I talk about this poll? Jackson State ranked number 2 in the band of the year contest. Jackson State with an opportunity to play in the Celebration Bowl. What do they do? What do they do with the band? I know what I think they should do, but do they compete in both? I just want to throw that out there. Should Jackson State get to the Celebration Bowl? Do they compete in both, or do they concentrate on helping their team win the Celebration Bowl? Number one, I am glad that the lone North Carolina Central Eagle person that we have in our poll ranking system, I'm assuming he switched his vote to one of the 2 teams that deserve to be at the number 1 spot. I am glad of that. Number 2, yes, I did go back with South Carolina State. Y'all gave me too much hell last week for switching my vote. So that was just a aberration. Sorry, Charles. Had to do it to you, man. But once again,
like white women, wishy-washy vote. But I digress. Go for it.
Tennessee State, though. Did anybody see that victory Tennessee State had yesterday? I saw the second half of that game. Great way to hold on. There is no way Tennessee State should not be in the 3rd position. Sorry.
Preach.
I hope get it at large. Both these teams, I think, deserve an at-large bid later on today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. But if you had to say which one deserved a at-large more than the other, it would definitely have to be Tennessee State. And for the first time, Doc, I'm going to say I hope the people on the committee don't look at your poll and have that be the determining factor on which one of these 2 HBCUs would happen to get in. We do what we do. We put out the information. I know some of those people may monitor us, but Tennessee State should be the number 3 team. Hands down. They should
hands
be
down.
And should they get in and pick up a victory or 2, they may wind up being the number 2 team after the Celebration Bowl. I'm just throwing it out.
That's a good point. That is a real good point. But in the lab, AD Drew, you can't just put that out there. You got to tell why you believe that Tennessee State should be in the 3rd spot over North Carolina Central.
Strength of schedule.
Yes.
Straightforward.
No Virginia Lynchburg. on Tennessee State's schedule. No Division II on Tennessee State's schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah, some would argue that Pine Bluff and No, I'm not gonna do that. But good point.
but you also have to cancel that out with some of the other competition, especially in conference. And
right,
no offense, BA, the OVC Big South Conference is rated higher than the BA Conference.
Yeah, and let me not just beat up on the HBCU programs in terms of Valley and Pine Bluff, because they have Lindenwood that's in the conference now. And
Yes, that's their Valley
too, and that's
their Valley.
So, Mike, since you agreed so much, let me go to you and let you get your jabs in at this time.
Hands down, as Drew said, they should be the number 3 team. No offense to North Carolina Central, but you have the season they had and the conference they have. I think Drew has already talked about the competition of that conference versus the MEAC. I won't dwell on that. I won't talk about their average point of margin for higher ranked teams, their strength of schedule, as Drew mentioned, and the fact that they're now sharing for the conference title. North Carolina Central, great season, but they're not sharing for a conference title. So with that being said, it hands down should be Tennessee State should be up at the number 3 spot. And I completely agree. Depending on who wins the Celebration Bowl, you can make an argument that they're number 2 when it's all said and done. You can also make an argument. This is no jab at you, Brian. But why is Florida A&M in the poll? Never mind. So anyway, they have some key losses to lower ranked teams. Valley, we talking Valley. But yes, they did finish strong. But that's my biggest harp is move. Let's do right. Do Tennessee State. I hope also. I don't know the FCS playoff structure. That's probably more so UDOC, CB, or AD. I don't know it, but I hope it doesn't get down to, which HBCU we gonna pull in. Because if they do, I would also vote for Tennessee State.
Yeah,
that's a good one. As we get in there, we'll get a chance to discuss the FCS playoffs in the next segment. Let's stick with the poll rankings. But before I go to Brian and close out with Charles on the rankings, there's a question out there. You may be able to pull it back up in terms of that, if you would, Roy, if you can find it, in regards to asking the question why I do not participate in the MEAC Football Media Day Monday Coaches Conference. I don't participate in the SWAC as well. I had the ability to participate in both of them over the years. People may not have realized that while they called me the dean of SWAC, I was the interim dean, associate dean over the last 3-4 years, if you would. But in January, I was elevated to serve as the interim dean of the college education at Texas Southern University. And as such, a couple of meetings I have on Monday precluded me from participating in either the MEAC Weekly Media Show or the SWAC MEAC Media Day. So that's why, for those that pay attention, that's Johnny Thornton. I wanted to get his name. I appreciate you, Roy. That's why you hadn't seen me participating in the MEAC or SWAC Media Day, because of my responsibility as a dean would not preclude me to be in the whole thing. And I didn't want to do anything halfway, so I couldn't do it. So I tried to get in the position during a lot of year. I was going to do it a little more as we got in the conference play. But I just could not twist my schedule to do it. With that being said, there was also a question in terms of the band rankings. There is a group of individuals that are previous band directors that are on the committee. Some others that were very high in terms of being band directors. They are the ones, after the bands select which game they want measured. They get to tell them that, and based on what they send in, those are evaluated for the technicalities. And you can go to the Band of the Year, and you'll see the breakdown. We've had shows that discuss that, and based on those criteria, how they rank the band. So, unlike what we traditionally did, I stopped it after the band championship last year was our last year doing that. We like to do the head-to-head matchups. We believe, as they said, the HBCU marching sport, there's a winner and a loser. We did it similar to what you see in football, basketball, whatever. When the bands would have a matchup battle, we would select the winner, and that winner would actually get the win, and the loser would get the loss. And then we did it based on wins and losses. So a little different in the criteria, but we're on board in terms of supporting the band of the year. And so we pulled ours to allow that ranking to get the shine it deserves. With that being said, let's get back to the major division breakdown and get to Brian, and we'll close it out with Charles giving his thoughts on the top 7 this week. Thus far, we even said somebody out there, Ed said Tennessee State should be as high as number 2. Brian, what are your thoughts in terms of the top this week?
Well, first off, good morning, everybody. Let me address what's happening. This conversation going on that FAMU doesn't deserve to be in the top 7, right? I want you to note that we have beaten the number 2 and number 5 team, the 2 teams ahead of us. We have beaten them. Yes, we have lost to the second worst.
Say their name. Say their name. Valley.
I'm not gonna say their name. I'm not gonna say their name.
Say their name. Say my name.
Say my name. Say my name.
Say my name.
But
my name.
Counteract the second worst loss to 2 good wins. That is why we belong at number 6. Okay, so and then so I'm gonna leave it at. We're right where we need to be.
Respect on my name.
Put some respect on FAMU. And after we beat
you also have beaten number 7, and you got a matchup with number 8, which will finalize whether you probably in the top 7.
We have beaten 3 other teams on there. So, look, we're 3-1 against the opponents here in the top 7 in the 6 other teams. So come on now, people. I mean, are there really look, we're 6. Are there really that many teams better than us? No, there's not. I mean, okay. So let me move forward. In addressing the North Carolina Central Tennessee State thing. Now, I'm one of the people that have I don't have the top 4 the way they are because I don't know, Doc, if my vote got counted, but I still have South Carolina State ranked number 1. Okay. So I'm one of the 5. And that's no shade at Jackson State. I've made my arguments about why I felt South Carolina State.
It's plenty shade at Jackson State, but go ahead.
I used data. I presented data a couple of weeks ago, and that data still stands, okay? But I will say the margin between North Carolina Central, and Tennessee State is razor thin. And I just, and Drew, I know we like to use data. I was just looking at one of our favorite data sources. North Carolina Central is rated higher than Tennessee State by a thin margin, right? And just to put it out there, they're rated above Jackson State too. But I'm not gonna go there because that people say that I'm throwing shade, but whatever. Okay, so it's a razor thin margin. But congratulations to Coach T.C. Taylor on getting his 10th win of the season. Congrats to Jackson State, 4th year in a row that the SWAC East champion has gone unbeaten. I think that's pretty amazing. And 3 to 4 years by Jackson State, and that too is very amazing. As a lot of people were discussing yesterday down in Orlando, the table that Coach Prime left is still plentiful for Jackson State. So I mean, I know that may not be popular, but it is. It's still plentiful, and congratulations. And we'll see if Coach Taylor can do something that Coach Prime could not do. Still to come.
Shout out to Thornton. He said, I was a gentleman in the scholar until I wrote the wrong letters on the shirt. That was pretty good. Ice cold, brother. I told him I was invited to many of the smokers, but my GPA was so high when they read my transcript, they sent me to the alphas. But with that being said, Charles, what are your thoughts?
Tennessee State is a tremendously good football team, and I understand, the OBC is a conference that's rated higher, but my eyeball test still tells me that South Carolina State, North Carolina Central can run the hell out of the football, and they're physical as hell. So I'm not willing to concede 2 and 3 to Tennessee State just yet. That being said, that same argument, Jackson State is a tremendously physical football team. So my eyeball test tells me with regards to them that they are and deserving should be the number one team. But there is a very small difference between 1 through 4. These have been, I think, the bellwether teams all this season. There's still football to be played. I would love, God, this is that one year. I would love to see that Southern Heritage Classic in terms of Jackson State, Tennessee State being played.
Yep.
That would have told quite a bit. But I, that being said, Doc, if we could just figure out a way to get North Carolina Central and Tennessee State in the playoffs so they can see each other, God, that would be fun. Some type of way.
Yeah, this is a year where you could argue that you could have a 4-round postseason playoff capped by a celebration bowl after the semifinals were played in some fashion. It would be fascinating. But since that not to be, we'll take our next break and we'll turn the other page and talk about the chances of North Carolina Central and Tennessee State getting to the FCS playoffs. What are your thoughts? What are their challenges? What do they have on the side? I'll have some questions that kind of break that down for you. Then obviously we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about the Bayou Classic matchup next week and closing out things in the Turkey Day Classic. With that being said, we'll take our last break. We'll come back on the other side and we'll get in a little bit of that talk and we'll add what AD Drew wants to get on the table as well.
ESPN Band of the Year returns to Atlanta on December 13th. 4 marching bands will qualify for the big stage, where 2 national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Barcade. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour and enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit ZoraFestival.org for tickets.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Let me say that Zora Festival looks like it will be fun, had by all those in that park that can attend that. Please get over there, celebrate, and support. With that being said, let's get into this FCS playoff talk. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about the matchup at the playoff level for Division II. First, you have Carson. You have Miles that will travel to Valdosta State, one of the top teams, not only in the region, the number 1 seed in that region, if you would, but to one of the top teams in the Division II in the poll rankings. So that will be a tough one there. But you have, in terms of further matchups, Lenore Ryan is going to be at Virginia Union Panthers. So the Panthers get to host a home game. Lenore Ryan comes in at 10-2, 7-2. with 2 of those losses were in conference play. They take on Virginia Union Panthers that come in at 9-3, 6-1. In terms of that matchup, much like the Miles Golden Bears in terms of their matchup. They come in at 10-2, 8-0. They're on the road at Valdosta State Blazers that are 10-0, 6-0 in terms of that matchup. Charles, what are your thoughts in the Division II playoffs that go on when you get into that second round?
Miles and Valdosta State, that is very intriguing, just because Miles' defense is one that is, I think, we can start kind of saying that's championship caliber defense, where they can go on the road and get it done, and defense wins championships. That's going to be a tough matchup for Miles to overcome Valdosta State. They got to find some offense from somewhere, but I'm intrigued by it, and I'm intrigued just by the fact Virginia Union is hosting a playoff game. That's going to be a pretty good one, and I want to see, can this offense explode again? Prior 2 years, the offense had trouble getting on track in that first round, and it seems as though they unlocked something, got things going, and Jada Byers just has to show up and be that bellwether cow that he has been thus far for Virginia Union.
I'm going to save you for last with your unique ability to break down the Division II, what we like to call the mid-major division. So I'm going to go to you, Brian, in terms of your thoughts. As Charles talked about that matchup with Valdosta State, they're led by Tremaine Jackson, Texas Southern alum himself. What are your thoughts in terms of these 2 matchups with Miles going on the road to Valdosta State, with Virginia Union hosting the Lenore Ryan Bears?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how Miles, whether the momentum of the continuous play, Valdosta State had a week off. I think there is something to being able to continually play, and I think Miles has sort of had that opportunity to go from the end of the regular season to hosting the SIAC championship to hosting a playoff game, and now get a shot at Valdosta State. I think that's a tremendous advantage for them to kind of stay to keep moving. And so I think with all games like this, how you respond on the road in the first quarter, first half are going to be real important for them. I'm just excited to see Miles and Virginia Union go against 2 programs that are sort of the standard in the region. I mean, Lenore Ryan has, I don't know what number of consecutive years it's been for Lenore and Ryan in the playoffs, but they're a standard. They're like Carson Newman. They're in Wingate. They're almost there every year. So to see Virginia Union and Miles have a shot at potentially, I mean, we're all rooting for this, right? We're rooting for Union versus Miles, a de facto region championship game, and an HBCU Division II mid-major non-D1 championship game as well. I think that's what we're all rooting for. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Mike, what are your thoughts about these 2 matchups in the playoff second round? HBCUs go through.
I don't know. I think it's classic because you have Miles, on the one side, where you're gonna get a test of that defense. They got to go on the road in a playoff situation in foreign territory against a top-ranked team that's scoring 43, 44 points per game. How well can that defense play? So they've got a heavy offense. I believe they're undefeated. They're amongst 2 or 3 teams. They've been in the top 2 or 3 on the D2 poll. So I think it's a tough for Miles. So you'll see how that defense can mount up. I agree. Where's their offense going to come from? So that's the biggest question. And with Virginia Union, I think with Lenore Ryan, you don't know what you're going to get. You look at Lenore Ryan's performance, and I don't claim to be a D2 expert, but their performance seems to have been cyclic over the years. So I think, if you could get Jada Byers going and an offensive effort against Lenore Ryan, you have a very good shot at Lenore Ryan. So, and more friendlier territory. So So we'll see. I think it'll be an interesting matchup on both sides of the coin, but that Valdosta State is going to be a tough hurdle for Miles, and they have continuity. I think that's a strength for them. They didn't have time to get a break, as my good friend Brian would say. But that defense has been consistent at least the last 4 weeks. So can they add a fifth week to that and maintain that in hostile territory?
Good stuff. AD Drew, I told you I'd save you for last. I want to get your thoughts in terms of these matchups coming up this weekend.
Very interesting matchups. The Miles Valdosta State is possibly going to be the slow lane on the interstate game where there will be no passing because both these teams love to run the ball. Miles running for almost 169 yards per game, and versus Valdosta State, who's running for 202 per game. The big thing is for Miles, that run game is about 49% of their total offense versus a Valdosta State where that's about 45% of their total offense. So Valdosta State will put the ball in the air a little more. Just for comparison, Valdosta State gives up 120 on the ground, and Miles only gives up 104 on the ground. So, and we know Valdosta State is outscoring their opponents by a whopping 35 points per game compared to Miles, who's outscoring their opponents by 16 points per game. So what I bring all that up to say, if it's close, advantage Miles. If you see Valdosta State with a bunch of explosion plays, as we like to call them, 15, 20-yard games, 30, 40-yard touchdown runs, advantage Valdosta State. The Virginia Union Lenore Ryan game is a contrast of styles. We know Union loves to run the ball. Lenore Ryan loves to pass the ball. So it's going to be interesting. I am really curious, though, with Union hosting this game over the Thanksgiving weekend. Will that truly be a home field advantage for with this being the Thanksgiving weekend? Because you're not going to have that true HBCU atmosphere that you would have normally at a game because the students are gone. Most of these students are gone. Will students be coming back to support their team? Well, you may have some DC, Baltimore based students, Virginia based students who will come back, but we know how diverse our student population is and how many states our HBCUs tend to cover. So this may not be except for the travel, this may not be as big of an advantage for Union as you would think. I would probably much rather be on the road this particular week, like Miles, versus being at home this particular week, like Virginia Union.
Go ahead, Charles. You want to add another question?
Well, no, I mean, listen, the onus is on Virginia Union to make it a home field advantage. I mean, we're not going to make that same argument with regard to is Valdosta State going to have fans in the stands. I mean, that it's on some of our HBCU fan base to pick up that slack, and they really have to make sure that it becomes a home field advantage. Go ahead.
Here's the one thing you have to remember. Unlike a regular season home game, your student activity fees do not cover your admission to an NCAA game. So those students who used to get it in for free now have to pony up $15, $20, $25 to come watch their team that they've watched for free
your Panther pride, your Union pride has to kick in.
Right.
Something has to kick in.
I mean, I would be there.
I think you're right, but I think it's a good point from AD just to putting it out there to educate folks that may not realize that from that perspective. And to your point, Charles, if you're going to be in the business of going to the playoffs, that means you're in the business of going to the playoffs, which means also something additionally that the administration can pay for those tickets. If that's the business they choose to be in, to support the students that choose to come back. But I think there are some culturally unique spaces that Thanksgiving, in terms of the traditional family may be different from a cultural perspective than other groups, and so that's something to add. But as we get into that debate, I don't want to belabor the point too much. I think, as you said, if you're in the business, we saw what that meant for Tennessee State, as they had less than 2,000 fans. I think what they talked about directly in that tape, they released it as exactly 1,536 fans were at the game. Yeah, it was cool. That's another issue there in terms of being cold. But when you're chasing a chance at a championship, that
That
just
this was a conversation.
yeah, that's a statement in itself in terms of to the administrations, to me, with all the other things they're dealing with, that their fan base says they don't give a damn about that conference or the championship or how well you're playing or what you built. That's not what they want to see. And at some point, I just think it behooves those in administration to take a serious look because that's painful. I mean, and obviously they can't play at home because there's some challenges with that stadium. But to have 1,500 fans, let me get that correct, 1,500 fans in a 60, 70,000 facility looks horrific. And it's a statement. That's quite ugly. AD, Drew, your point before we take a last break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the chances of Tennessee State and North Carolina Central to get in the playoffs and what they attendance will look at in terms of that same given weekend if they are able to get in. And does that influence where it shouldn't? Does that influence the fact of them actually getting the at-large bid?
Well,
don't answer that. We'll answer on the other side. I know you had another
the only thing I was gonna say is I remember when Tuskegee made their playoff run in the bid teams, and we had the opportunity to host a playoff game or two, including one over the holiday weekend. But that particular fan base, because we were so used to playing Turkey Day and things like that, it wasn't as big of an adjustment for us to play over the Thanksgiving break as some other fan bases who, your season is done the week before Thanksgiving, and you go ahead, you make all your other plans, you out of there, you home when class is in on Tuesday, going to visit mom and them. So I think it's just a cultural thing, and depending on the fan base, especially when you're not used to being in the playoffs or used to, let's be real, it's the first time they done won in the playoffs, so they're not used to having to deal with the what if of the second weekend.
Well, I'll be quite honest with you. At least at Prairie View, our season was over by that when Mike and I was in school, and we actually decided to partake in the Bayou Classic. We were driving down to the Bayou Classic. I know a lot of fan bases, not to be respectful, that now Bayou Classic has become so big that it's similar to the Celebration Bowl. It becomes a cultural galvanizing event where not just fans and alumni of Grambling and Southern in there, but you get the HBCU community that wants to partake in the festivities associated with the culture there. So you already have folks that have made plans. People make these plans, particularly when they understand, which I don't like in terms of New Orleans now, how they upcharge all these rooms. People plan quite a bit ahead to try to get ahead a little bit of the charges associated with those rooms. So you can't just cancel those rooms if your team is in. So that's another issue when you're waiting last minute, that a percentage of those fans across the nation have already made plans, whether it's traveling home, and some people's homes are not in that area. That means they're actually maybe family in Texas. And so you getting back to Virginia is a challenge as well. So there's some unique things associated with the fan base. But I do agree with Charles' overall premise. This is what you going to partake in, and you need to find a way with having people in the community, students or whatever, to support so you can continue your run with the true fan base. With that being said, enough of that. We're going to stop here and we're going to take our last break. We'll come back quickly on the other side and talk a little bit about the FCS playoffs, key matchups at the FCS level coming up this weekend, including a matchup between mid-major and major team on Thanksgiving. We'll take our last break and come back right back on the other side.
At Automasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
HBCU football fans, a champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 14th. MEAC champions, SWAC champions, the Cricket Celebration Bowl, crowning an HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Mike had to drop off as he has those other duties and responsibilities getting prepared to travel. With that being said, I wanted to note that this is the at-large bid picture according to Zach McKinnell, as he put in the HBCU media. I thought it was interesting. About 11 teams are probably fighting for the last 5 spots. This is an estimate, right? Not exact science, but you have Eastern Kentucky that sits at 8-4, 6-2 out of UAC, United Athletic Conference. New Hampshire out of the Colonial CAA, also 8-4, 6-2. UT Martin that has a head-to-head victory over Tennessee State, that had a piece of that share, sits at 8-4 though, 6-2 in the Big South OVC. Northern Arizona out of the Big Sky, 8-4, 6-2. Tennessee State at 9-3, 6-2, Big South OVC. Southeastern Louisiana, 7-5, 6-1 out of Southland. Southern Utah, 7-5, 6-2 out of UAC. Western Carolina, 7-5, 6-2 out of the SoCon. North Carolina Central, 8-3, 4-1 out of the MEAC. Chattanooga, 7-5, 5-3 out of the SoCon. And Stony Brook, 8-4, 5-3 out of the Colonial CAA. So those are like the 11 teams. To give you a little more framework when we ask this question, you know, the challenges and the pros of what it will take for Tennessee State, North Carolina Central. North Carolina Central finished second with conference loss to South Carolina State. Tennessee State, again, tied in a 4-way tie. So people don't necessarily think highly of those conferences for whatever reason in terms of the rankings. So you talking about one team out of the MEAC, that's one thing. By the OVC, you have the SEMO that gets the automatic bid, but can they get 2? In this case, some people saying they would need 3 out of the OVC. That would include Tennessee State. Starting with you, AD Drew, I'm gonna come back to you. Your thoughts on this, and then go to Brian and Charles.
I don't have the records in front of me, but I know, like, take a team like North Carolina Central, and you said they had 8 wins. I know 1, if not 2 of those wins will not count when the selection committee looks at them because they are not FCS victories. But also, I know they have 1 loss that will not count because it was against a FBS. So everybody who's going to be evaluating teams between now and the selection show in just over an hour, make sure you only count FCS wins and losses when doing your own personal evaluation. What's going to be said?
Good point, because in terms of the UT Martin, they actually have an FBS win, and you're not supposed to count it, but you know it's going to be looked at. So good point, AD Drew, when you point that out.
Yeah, but when you look at the OVC with 4 teams tied with the same exact record. And everybody beat everybody in that little 14 bunch. Tennessee State was 1-2, and one of the other teams was 1-2 just against those four, and the other two teams went 2-1. I wonder how much that's going to weigh in on the decision, because I think I really expect the two teams that went 2-1 in that cluster. Well, one of them's already in. I expect the second 2-1 team in that cluster to get in. But is there enough space for one of those 1 and 2 teams to get in? And how do you justify which 1 and 2 team was better than the other 1 and 2 team? If you put one of those two teams in, they're gonna have to explain why one of those 1 and 2 teams, be it Tennessee State or not, got in over the other team. The only savior that I think for North Carolina Central is the fact that they did pick up some good non-conference victories, but
Right.
I'm hoping the committee does not look at that Elon game where they got
That's the one.
at home, and that be the determining factor of leaving them out.
Yeah, that's a crucial one. The only thing you can hope that it was so early that it doesn't have the same weight as some other ones, but they will look at all that, and so it's a great point to be made, and what we want fans to understand when we break all this down. Charles?
Yeah, I think with regards to Tennessee State, I think they will get in. I think 9 FCS wins, and the clincher being the win over SEMO. I think that was huge for Tennessee State. I think they'll be.
It's a hell of a closing statement.
Yeah, it's a hell of a closing statement, and that's how you sign off the resume with the big win over SEMO. So that was huge for them. North Carolina Central, I think AD, you touched on it. I think 7 FCS wins is not going to be enough. I think the loss to Elon, it was a blowout loss. So it left me taking it left me taking a look at what was North Carolina Central's best win. And when you take a look at it, maybe Campbell or Alabama State might be their best win. So I'm not sure that's going to be enough to get them in. Like you said, they have that one win over 9 FCS opponents. So I'm probably, when you take a look at all of those things, it's going to be hard for them to overcome that hump. But, it's tough because they are a very, very, very good football team. I'd hate to see them get left out because, I think the world of their defense and their running game.
Good stuff, Charles. Let me go to you, Brian. Obviously, they don't look back to last year, but we know there's a trend when you get in the FCS playoffs, particularly if you hold yourself well. Oftentimes, that is a lingering effect in the playoffs' mind. Central went in the playoffs last year after stumbling in that one game against Howard, closed out very strong, went to the playoffs and actually played really well, even with the quarterback injury, and the other team had to win that game late. Do you think that would be any mitigating factor in terms of them looking at Central and maybe bypassing what happened with Elon and not letting it weigh too hard in terms of the matchup? Or are you in line pretty much with Charles and AD broke down in terms of at least Central? And what are your thoughts on Tennessee State?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what I was sitting here thinking about. As I was, listening to Drew and Charles, I was sitting here thinking, how is Central going to get in? Like I would, of the two, I would be most surprised if Tennessee State did not get in. I'm just looking at that article from Zach that you mentioned, and even in looking at his last 4 in, the 9 FCS wins does stack up to be very good compared to the other teams. And then throwing out the one non-FCS win by Central, that puts them at 7 wins along with a bunch of other teams. And the only thing I thought of, Doc, was what you just said. They were there last year, and that they've been in the postseason now 2 consecutive years, and so committee members start to. I've always felt like when you get ranked and you get opportunities, it's a lot of times based on tradition of your program, the head coach, what you've done the previous year, even though we all think it shouldn't matter. Those people are human, and it does. And so that's one thing I think they can hang on. And that would be that we went there before and that this is a pretty good team, you know. So I don't know. I'd be nervous if I was a North Carolina Central fan, and I'm hoping that the people, the voters, recognize why they lost to Elon. You know, and I think it's important. And I, you know, look, I appreciate learning more about that Elon loss, because I had been asking that for weeks, like why they lost. And I appreciate my guy Johnny Thornton, who kind of educated me a little bit on why that loss occurred. So I hope that the voters, and I hope that they are able to break down and understand why that happened, and understand, you know, that Central team is not the same Central team that has closed out the season, and that Elon team is not the same Elon team that started the season. So hopefully it works out for Central. I'd love to see them get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Great points, and I agree with you all, but the FCS committee can do HBCU culture solid and just send Central to Tennessee State. I would
love to see,
but maybe we should just say even that with that case, send Tennessee State to Central.
Who would host that game, though? Who would host that game? Tennessee State doesn't want to host that game.
Yeah, my point. Point well taken. Well, let's quickly get in here and look at these matchups. We have Tuskegee Golden Tigers 5-5, 5-3. They're at number 7. Alabama State Hornets is 6-5, 5-3. That is on Thanksgiving Day. And intrigued matchup. Always love to have my turkey and turn that on the television streaming devices and check that out while other folks are gorging out on the other football games. But that's just a fad. Now has become something that I do with Deuce to watch that game. So that's a matchup. Now on Friday, we get a matchup we don't normally get between the Ag School, which could be a question and go a long way in terms of question that AD had in terms of the 3 agricultural schools. Which one had the worst season of Alabama State? Well, Alabama State needs to win to help them in that question. And then certainly the winner of Alabama A&M going to FAMU. So one of those teams gets a chance to get a win to take them out of that mix. FAMU, Prairie View already lost to Alabama State. So I think that probably puts Prairie View at the top. But in terms of that matchup, we also have obviously on Saturday the Bayou Classic. Grambling State 5-6, 2-5. Number 5 Southern Jaguars are 7-4, 6-1. Can Grambling do the major upset that we've seen in the Bayou Classic over many years, when Grambling would come in with the spot already locked for the SWAC championship game, but would find a way to lose to Southern? Can the tides be turned in terms of this matchup, or will Southern get it done? I'm gonna stick with you, AD Drew, and kind of go around for this last question. You can pick either one of those games. You don't have to go to each one of them because of time. Which one of those games has your most interest and why?
I'm gonna just hit all 3 of them quickly. Tuskegee, Alabama State, number 1. The Turkey Day Classic has not been the same since it has moved on campus, except for the first year it was on campus. There was something about playing that game in Crampton Bowl. Having been to the Turkey Day Classic in both locations. Just want to throw that out there. But with that particular matchup, will either team's offense decide to show up, or will they be left at the kitchen table? Because both offenses have been putrid over the last few weeks. That's
might get a 6-3 victory, much like the 9-6 win.
Right?
No. It'll be something like 6-5 because somebody will mess around and
get a safety.
Could have happened in that particular.
That worse 5-3 in the same game winner.
Yeah. Go to the bullpen. I need a closer in that particular matchup. Friday with the 2 A&M schools. Besides those playing in the Disappointment Bowl, because that's exactly what that game will be Friday, because both teams are highly disappointed with the outcome of their seasons. My only question that I have in that particular matchup is, will the attendance have 4 digits, and will the first digit be a crooked number? That's the only thing I'm worried about in that particular matchup, because Thanksgiving, people already got plans, flights, all that kind of stuff. Is anybody going to even show up to this game? And Saturday, will the Bayou Classic be an opportunity for Southern to do the we gonna play y'all a quarter and a half, and pull the starters, or will they actually go out and play that game for 4 quarters and try to get the victory? Because yes, the Bayou Classic is important, but the bigger prize for Southern is a week later. So I just want to throw that out there.
I don't know. You can make an argument with some Southern and Grambling fans. So
yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, how they match up, or maybe they'll just be like, "Hey, let's get up big, and then we can take them out just because we're throttling." That doesn't tend to happen there.
But, when does it ever happen?
Exactly. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like as challenging offensive game as the Turkey Day Classic will be. I guarantee the game on Friday in Tallahassee will be the complete opposite. And I said this last night after the game, and I'm telling everyone now, your best bet of the weekend, take the over. The over in the points between Alabama, A&M, and FAMU. If it's 40, 50, I'm telling you, first team to 40, 42 is winning that game. Neither can stop the other. That's bad for us. We can score. Alabama A&M can score. Neither team can stop the other. Whichever team has the more turnovers will win the game. That's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I mean, so let's just go to that perspective. And I'm rolling with Southern in the Bayou. Terrence Graves doesn't lose the Bayou. Doesn't matter who he's playing for. Doesn't matter who he's coaching. He wins the Bayou Classic. So it's just a nice tune-up for Terrence Graves and the Southern Jaguars as they get ready to come to Jackson and get a little payback. Go Jags. This week. I won't say that. This week. I don't want y'all Jackson State people jumping on me. I said go Jags this week.
They will find you. They are an aggressive bunch. Yes. Thursday, let me go with Bama State in a 2-0 win over Tuskegee. I'm expecting a great picture store.
Would that 2 have to be in overtime?
Yeah, in overtime, exactly. So give me Bama State in that one. I will take the Rattlers. Striking again on Friday. And then I think Southern has solidified that quarterback position. They found something in the running game over the past 2-3 games. So I'm expecting Southern to get the win and have some momentum as they go into Jackson next week.
Certainly. Let me give a shout out to the Rattlers in the first segment. You know, I do my cigar, Victory Cigar. So Brian and AD for winning the Florida Classic. Again, Charles, for you, both of your Tigers, Jackson State and Texas Southern, won the weekend. So cigar to you in terms of that.
Volleyball today.
Exactly. Volleyball will be a huge matchup.
Get our rings back. We're getting our rings back, Charles.
Jackson State National Championship. I'm fascinated to see. Again, that will be on ESPNU at 2:30. Obviously, the MEAC Championship with Howard and Delaware State will be a matchup that you can see at 7:30 in terms of those matchups, getting it done. Again, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share your podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, come from Inside the Lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watch and Charles Bishop. Again, at 11:30 on ESPN, you'll see the FCS Championship Selection Show matchup. We tried to give you a breakdown on the chances of Tennessee State, North Carolina Central getting in. We'll see formally what that looks like, and you can bet A.D. Drew and Brian Fulford will talk about it, and among some other things in terms of their show tonight on Sports Wrap. Make sure you tune that in.
Have a special guest.
And maybe a special guest. I love the tease. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watch and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Look for it on Tuesday as we break down the major division, mid-major division poll rankings. Pretty solid. You know where that's going to go. But in addition, we're scheduled to have both coaches on the show in terms of Miles College coach Shade as well as Dr. Parker for Virginia Union. They'll be on to talk about their victory this past Saturday as well as their upcoming game. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. You'll see us on Sunday next week. We'll give you an update about Thursday. We should have some news for you then as well. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattacavil on Facebook and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1. And HBCU Sports Lab on Facebook and YouTube. Also on Threads in terms of Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecture.
Wolford?
Dismissed. Beat JSU. Let's go. Volleyball.